Looking back, she was an active child of 4 who was always running around and loved to play on the slide and swings in the park in front of their house, just like other children of her age. That particular fateful day was just like any other summer day. Anna went to prep school where she had 30 other children in her class. They learned, played, and giggled their way through most of the time spent in school and had loads of fun. It was Friday and the weekend was something to look forward to. The luxury of not having to wake up early, rush through breakfast with your mum breathing down your neck and trying to catch the school bus on time was something to be looked forward to. At the end of the day, the school bell rang and there was this crazy, noisy scramble when the children rushed out to board their respective school buses and grab a place to sit. Anna boarded the large yellow bus that would drop her home. She hurried to get her favorite seat by the window. She loved the wind on her face and hair as they drove around town, dropping off all the children, as well as the sights she got to see. She found her place in the 5th row and dropped her blue bag and yellow water bottle on the seat to show that it had been taken. That done, she plonked herself down on it as well with a grin and heaved a sigh of relief. Miss Rosie had made them draw and color a bird today, and she was excited to get back home and show her drawing to her mother. The bus soon filled up, and once all the children were in, the attendant did a quick head count as best as he could with all the jostling that the kids were doing, before he signaled to the driver that all were on board. There was no point in speaking as his voice would drown in all the chatter anyway. The driver grinned in acknowledgement and started the bus, and they were soon well on their way, stopping intermittently to drop off children either single or in groups at various stops on the route. Anna's friend Linda soon got off and cheerily waved goodbye as the bus moved on. Anna waved her hand enthusiastically and yelled "Bye" before settling down again and losing herself in a pleasant reverie. Soon the park in front of her house was visible, and Anna excitedly got up and got ready to get off the bus. Her blue bag promptly went back on her back and she grabbed her yellow bottle before moving forward towards the door. Rita, Deepa and Sunil also got ready to get off with her. Once the bus stopped, the children alighted and started dashing off in different directions. Anna, fresh from the excitement of her art class, spotted a perfect hibiscus flower in the hedge on the edge of the park and stopped to admire it. She plucked the flower and was engrossed in noticing the bright red color, the length of the stamen, the lines on the petals, the veins on the leaves, etc., and did not realize that the bus was reversing on the road. She absent-mindedly began to cross the road. The driver had not realized that Anna was behind the bus, and she was not visible in the rear view mirror or the side mirrors, and he thought enough time had gone by since the children got off. So he stepped on the accelerator and backed up with speed. The bus hit Anna hard, and she was flung to the side where her head hit the pavement. The driver realized that something was not right and stopped. But the rear wheel had already gone over the little girl. The driver quickly got off the bus to check, as did the conductor, the teachers on the bus, and a few of the old children. Oh dear, what an unexpected thing to happen! The yellow water bottle was flung about 6 meters away, and Anna was lying unconscious near the pavement. Rita had seen the accident take place from across the road, and she began screaming and yelling. Hearing all the commotion, Mrs. Lawrence came out of her house and noticed the school bus and the crowd. As she took the sight in, her heart missed a beat. "That's Anna's bus," she thought. She had a strange sense of foreboding as she rushed towards the crowd. One look at the little girl's still frame had Mrs. Lawrence turned cold as stone in shock. Someone called an ambulance and asked for Mr. Lawrence's number. Her father was called and informed that there was an emergency and they were taking Anna to the Holy Family Hospital, which was the nearest hospital in the vicinity. The ambulance arrived in a few minutes. Anna was carefully put on a stretcher and loaded into it along with Mrs. Lawrence. On reaching the hospital, she was rushed to the casualty center and attended to immediately by a doctor who declared that she had multiple injuries and they had to carry out several tests to know the event of damage. Mr. Lawrence arrived and they quickly admitted the little girl and started all the tests and treatment. It was found that Anna had a head injury and crushed spine. The Lawrence were devastated to know that their bright and beautiful little angel would have to be put on life support and undergo several surgeries if she survived. She had a lot of internal bleeding and the primary concern was to keep her alive. Their prayers, the good wishes of all Anna's friends and family, as well as the skills of the treating doctors, saw Anna through an exceptionally tough phase. Over a period of a year, she underwent 2 rounds of spinal surgeries to stabilize her spine, several blood transfusions, injections, and tests before the doctor finally heaved a sigh of relief. 8 more months of intensive physiotherapy and treatment ensured that Anna could now go home, but she still did not have full control over her bladder and bowel habits. Her legs were not capable of supporting her weight as there was a loss of both muscle power and sensation. She would have to lead her life confined to a wheelchair. With time and regular physiotherapy, there could be some improvement, but the doctors were not too hopeful. Anna's parents were heartbroken. The thought of their beautiful angel living her life bound to a wheelchair was too painful to contemplate, but their belief in God and hope for a miracle helped them get through the toughest phase. They decided to stay happy around Anna and keep doing their best to help her improve and stay motivated. They believed a positive attitude could work miracles. Anna eagerly wanted to go back home as the hospital stay was full of memories of pain, suffering, and helplessness. She longed to get away from it all. She hated her hospital room, which was rather dull and dreary, although she had made good friends with the nurses and staff who looked after her. The smell of antiseptic lotions filled her nostrils, and the sounds made by all the machines around the room were annoying to say the least. On the day of her discharge from the hospital, she could hardly contain her excitement. Her hair neatly tied and wearing her own clean clothes instead of those from the hospital, Anna waited eagerly for her father to complete the discharge formalities before she was wheeled out of the hospital and into their car. Driving into the driveway of her home was pure joy for Anna and her parents. Of course, they avoided looking at the spot where the accident had taken place, but this was a space full of love and warmth. Being wheeled into the familiar living room where her cat Flurry came to greet her was the first time in ages that she felt comfortable. Oh, how she had missed her friends, family, and home. Entering her room with the baby pink floral wallpaper, fuchsia pink bedspread, and curtains which her mother had chosen so lovingly for her room, as well as all her soft toys arranged around as if waiting for her to come and play with them, was overwhelming. Her one-eyed teddy seemed to wink at her as she smiled at the sight. It seemed that the yellow canary looked at her, imploring her to pick her up. Her little bunny with a carrot seemed to have paused in the act of eating to look up in wonder at her return. Her eyes welled up with tears of happiness as she looked at everything around her. Her homecoming was celebrated with a little party, and her friends were all there to greet her. Anna liked the idea and happily donned her white frock with frills that was laid out for her on the bed. She could not help feeling a sense of inadequacy as things were a little different now. She could not play with her friends or dance around as she had a physical limitation, and she was noticeably quiet after her friends had left. Her life had changed and she had to come to terms with it. She went through the stage of feeling depressed and angry at how life had been so unfair to her. There were tantrums and mood swings to deal with, and it was traumatic for both Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence to witness their little girl go through the immense pain. They decided to get her back to school, but since she was physically limited and mentally upset, they decided to admit her to a school for children with special needs, so that it could help her to accept her disability more easily when she saw other children with problems as well. They felt this would help her overcome her depression. This was the best that they could do for her under the circumstances. They liked Divine Angel School, and that is where Anna spent the next few years. During this time, Anna's mother continued to teach her at home so that she would not lose out academically. She continued to clear her grades under a homeschooling program in addition to the school she was going to. Anna, being a bright and intelligent child, needed more intellectual stimulation than the school could offer, and so, once her emotional trauma was dealt with and she had caught up with her academics, it was decided to move her to a regular school. This had proven difficult as most schools looked upon a handicapped child as a liability. It had taken a lot of persuasion and repeated requests on the part of Mr. Francis Lawrence before the modern international school had agreed to bend the rules a little and accommodate Anna as a day scholar. It had certainly helped that Mr. Lawrence had facilitated a large loan for the local church, and the pastor had also put in a word. Lena's harmless little query had opened the floodgates of Anna's traumatic memories. She knew this was bound to happen, and queries like this would be repeated in future too. She was prepared to face them now, her jaw clenched with firm resolution. She reached out for her book of poems and soon drowned herself in the world of rhyme and fantasy.